So I am Pedro from the University of Alcalá. My paper, most of you should have received it already, about participation schemas, a tool to characterize collaborative participation. As you see, it is very much related to what's been just presented. It's not so much focused on getting to numbers like the one that was presented. It's more like trying to apply really common sense to an area that is very, very needed and that so far it's not completely satisfactory. So for sure it's one more revision of Einstein ladder. So it's again another model, but the focus is to try to identify the most important dimensions of a participatory initiative or policy or whatever, and try to standardize the graphic representation. So we are not trying to get to some kind of number, but at least to put all these dimensions together, because sometimes things are not higher or lower, they are just simply different, and this is better expressed in such a way. So the idea is that this will allow analysis. So when you are studying some participatory process, the design, when you are trying to design, and when you want to compare, which is something that is very difficult right now. As such, it tries to reach a pragmatic compromise between complexity, utility, so we want it to be useful, and versatility. And it has been thought, especially for the local level and policy-making processes, but it can be used in general for any participatory process where, for example, there is no government, etc. And it has a critical focus. So we do not want just to analyze participatory processes, but do it with a critical attitude. We will learn later why. So which are the 6 dimensions of participatory schemas? There you have them. So it's very quite obvious. So intensity of collaboration, very much inspired by Einstein. In which phases, because usually participatory processes have phases, and we frequently do not differentiate, and different phases have very different characters, so they need to be considered. The level of institutionalization is usually very important analysis of actors, and then some aspects about the how, so how deliberative and how much transparency is involved. But this is all in the paper, it is written, so my plan was not to talk about what is written, but I want to talk to you about why these schemas are important. And for that, I want to tell you a story in order to keep you more awakened. So I will tell you about the year I spent in the land of light, in the Terra da Luz, which is the state of Ciudadana in Fortaleza. I spent the year 2005 there, performing some research on how to use ICT to support participation. So it was kind of ethnographic research. So I spent the whole year talking with our representatives from all the different institutions, collectives involved in participation, social movements, neighborhoods, councillors, unions, etc. But it happened that I got involved in participatory budgeting experience. So the PT, the Workers' Party, had won the town hall, and I got into the team, which was introducing this experience. Tiago told us yesterday about participatory budgeting. We all kind of know about it. So you have these preparative assemblies, then there are these deliberative decision-making assemblies where delegates are chosen, which then choose the councillors, who then negotiate with the municipality, etc., etc. So the important thing is that I got confronted with something difficult to understand. So this process had at least 2 phases. The first one, I will call it like the deliberative budgeting, and it is related to really, so in this municipality, after more than 20 years of conservative government, so in this year happened things that had never, so who were not possible. Tiago told us, if you wanted to go to see a doctor, you had to go with the card of the councillor to get access to it. In this year, you could see normal people from favelas talking directly with the executives, the secretary. So this is the highest officer in one of the areas of the municipality, and interacting with them. And not only was it deliberative, I could see cases where in one of these meetings, you know, there are a lot of emotions. It was about the schools, years waiting for schools, and at some moment, everybody in the room started crying after getting approval, and the people from the municipality, the people there. So this was something really interesting. But at the same time, there was another phase. And I have to tell you, for anybody having a little bit of democratic sensitivity, the whole process happening there was simply disgusting. It was so manipulative. There were a lot of difficulties because it was the first year of this government, but there were a lot of mistakes done on the conceptual, on the design level, and on the execution level. So these people were treated sometimes like sheep. The office of the mayor had for sure complete control of the design of the process. And when you have the control of the design, as you know, you control very often the outcome. And through these participatory budgeting offices, they were organizing everything that happened. So even if the councillors were getting a pass reimbursed, everything had to go through the hands. I was part of this, so I could see it, and for me it was shocking. So I am not the first ethnograph. We see this problem that people are saying things are in a way, and you see that they are in a different way, and you have to make sense of this, trying to balance these two sides, two phases of the process, or even try to find something in the middle that is what gives really meaning to these two phases. I try to go to the literature. I have read a lot about participatory budgeting. Participatory budgeting, especially the one from Brazil, is the most known participatory experience, is the most famous, and there is a lot to read. And I was reading it. I also had a look at the thousands models about how to conceptualize participation. But none of them was helping me to make sense. Actually, the more I look into the literature on participatory budgeting, I had the impression that what they were telling me was this. No, really. So they were focusing on the positive, explaining the process, maybe one line or two about challenges, problems. And the more I read, actually, I had the impression that it was even like that. So they were not explaining the process. They were actually hiding, concealing that the king was naked. This is somehow related to what Plato told us. You remember probably everybody the allegory of the cave. So we researchers were supposed to be here with episteme, explaining the things as they are. But too frequently, what we are doing with our research, for many, many reasons, is we are contributing to create this doxa, this opinion, which frequently is false, and we are reinforcing the status quo. Another person who talked about episteme was Aristotle. And he actually talked about different intellectual virtues. Episteme, which is more or less like science, knowledge. Techne, which is technique, which is when you apply this knowledge coming from science to create things, to make machines, to do things. And this is something that we forgot. So our social sciences have a lot of focus on the episteme because we try to demonstrate that we are a science and we make numbers. But we forgot that for Aristotle, the most important, which was based on the other two, was this phronesis, the practical wisdom, which was the most relevant to all issues related to human beings. Because for humans, natural laws are important, etc., but you need to think about the whys, why people are acting. So you have to understand the reasons, what for is done. And finally, I'm not sure this was Aristotle saying, but in whose interest? So this means analyzing power. So I am afraid that most, or at least much research and academics frequently remain on the surface, and we do not go into the details. Especially when analyzing cases of participation, we tend to reinforce this rhetoric. We make some critics, but usually we do not go into the deep. And this is what these participatory schemas are about. They force you to reflect on the different dimensions, but they do it in a way that you take some kind of critical approach. So this is how all these five, it's six, but I will explain it later, come together. You are forced to identify, so this is, for example, this participatory budgeting. You do not say there is deliberation. So you are forced for every different phase that you identify to explain the minimum and the maximum level. So this is where things are moving. And if you see, this participatory budgeting has a lot of manipulation. For sure, there are levels which are coming higher, but you have this. And if you see there is manipulation, you are forced to explain it. You have the methods of selecting the participants. You see where important roles are. So if you have the decision maker, sponsor, and facilitators in the same place, there is reason for concern. You can see how many of the affected actors are actually participating and which influence they have. And transparency, deliberativeness, and how institutionalized. So if you put all this together, somehow you are forced to reflect a little bit and to give a picture, not just very positive. And this is, finally, the sixth dimension, the why, the what for, whose interest, that I did not find a way to put into graphic. But that's the idea that after reflecting on all this, you have also to include some reflection on this level. And this way, if we approach participatory activities with something like that, we could try to make some comparatives. Not a numeric account, but yeah, you can see differences, okay? And that was what I wanted to tell you.